Hi, everybody. No. How about? I don't know how many of you stand in front of a whole group of people and they're all looking right at you. It's tough. Anyway, I'm Lynn, Nino. I've been organizing these tripod shows for at least 5 years. The bathroom is through that door or downstairs at the back, winding around. And if you do use that door, be sure to close it afterwards. I have a puzzle here to give away tonight. It's brand new. All the pieces are there. Who wants it? Chip? Good. Okay, Becky Frehse is up first tonight. She's been a working artist and arts educator in Tacoma for 39 years. Originally from Illinois, she traveled around and crossed the country several times before landing in Tacoma to teach painting and drawing at PLU in 1986. Her first solo show in Tacoma was called My Tunisia at the University Gallery at PLU. Since then, Becky has done many solo exhibits, public installations, and participated in numerous collaborative shows around Puget Sound and beyond. Her most recent solo show, Spacious Rambles, was held at Lakewood Gardens in Lakewood last summer. Becky and her husband, Greg Utes, whom she met and married at PLU, have traveled far and wide together. Now that they have a grandson living in London, they find their travel planning usually includes a stop in London on the way. Becky?
Thank you, Lynn. Is this good? Can you hear me? Yeah. Oh, I count on you, Casey. All right. Yeah, okay, so let's see if we can get this. You've been staring at us long enough. That was 1988. 1988, Greg and I, we'd been married about a year, and we took some students to London for a semester, and so we were with students and traveling, doing, field trips around, and seeing we were particularly interested, and I've always been interested in rocks and stones. So obviously this is Stonehenge. I actually had to go back and find this box. I did the thing where you guys, I think a lot of you are maybe facing this, where you have this box of slides that you put away years ago, and you take it down from the closet, and there's all these little orange Kodak boxes in there, and if you're lucky, they have labels on them, but I went through quite a few of them looking for images from way back when, because that was very pre-digital. So we have a little slide scanner about this big. So some of the images I'm going to show you today come from those funky scan slides, not too many. I promise I won't show you too many like that. What is this one? This one, oh, I see, because it disappears. Let's try this. Yay. So you all know about Stonehenge, greatest stone circle that's existing pretty much, that people can see out on the Avery Plain in Somerset. And in those days, you could just walk up to it. There was a little ticket taker, you could pay it, make a donation. Of course, now there's all kinds of activities and things that they do at night, and they're really, really protective of the stone circles. But we would just go hiking, and when you're in England, you can hike through people's pastures and through all kinds of places, and you can just find a bunch of rocks, and suddenly you realize they're kind of organized in some kind of formation. A lot of times there's no information about what they are or how long they've all been there. They're all Neolithic, really, a lot of them, and then what we think of pre-Saxon. So. This is the Avebury, actually Glastonbury tour. So you know about the Glastonbury music festival that happens there. This is the tour. This is St. Michael's Tower. So the other thing you see a lot of as you travel around England is towers. Sometimes that's all that's left of a whole community is their tower. It was the highest thing. You could see it from a distance, and so you knew where you were, right? This is St. Michael's Tower. And always sheep. The sheep don't bother you. You just walk through the pasture, This is along the Dorset coast, and I just like this particular photo because of its, it's weird color. This is one of those scanned ones, but, hiking up to, I remember hiking up to that sort of circle of stone and some kind of place where you could watch to see whether there were any invading ships coming from the sea. This is on the Atlantic coast in, that's actually the Channel Coast in Dorset, which is the south coast of London, of England. And then from there you can see another tower, so you can gauge what's your day worth. Are you going to make it over there? If you've got to rent a car, it's easy. Tintagel. How many of you have been to Tintagel out in Cornwall? Yeah, right? This is the stuff of mythology. This is the stuff of King Arthur, Guinevere, the Knights of the Round Table supposedly happened here. Nobody knows for sure. But there's some historical possibility to the archaeology. Fascinating place to go and scour around. Or along the coast of Ireland, lots of stones to see in Ireland if you haven't been. That's anybody from Ireland here? I bet you. There you go. So, this is St. Michael's Tower out on a precipice. I just love the whole coast of Ireland, the west coast. And it's a great place to just go hiking and walking and see all the stone structures, probably very recent, but with piled up rocks. I was into rocks for quite a while in terms of painting. I'd been doing rocks and water from way back when I first went to China and started learning about Chinese painting and rocks and water, and then continued that for some time. So just everywhere in terms of my photos, looking at rock formations and just groups of photos, always thinking about using my camera as a sketchbook, and then thinking, oh, this might be cool to try to paint or draw later, right? This is in Ireland. So some of my paintings look kind of like this, so you can see I might have been looking at a hunk of stone somewhere with a little lintel over a little doorway and a garden, or just a bunch of weeds, and or castles. Making up. This is a totally made-up castle. Just thinking about towers and towers and towers and stone. So I've always got my camera in my coat pocket, so I might notice some nice stone. This is a sidewalk in Oxford. Greg and I lived in Oxford in 2023 for about 5 months. And so I walked everywhere. We didn't have a car. We didn't need a car. You can walk everywhere. Everything in Oxford is history, and everything is stone. So this I got off the internet because I don't fly, and I didn't have a drone. I needed to give you an quick overview as we flash through these slides. So this is the dome building on the left is called the Radcliffe Camera, and it began as a little performance place and a lecture place. It's a reading room now for university students, and it's part of the bigger Bodleian Library. So camera just means room, and it's round. And Greg, my husband, has a Bodleian library card, which is a very hard thing to get. And so he would every day walk here and go up and read old music manuscripts. And it's really beautiful. And then, so Oxford's just full of all these old, basically starting in around the 11th century when Merton College was started. It's all made up of, there's like 40 plus colleges and institutes that make up the university. And the oldest ones, there's Balliol and Merton and what's the other one, Exeter. A few of the oldest ones were started in around the 13th century. So it's long time ago. And they're all made basically the same way in a quadrangle, so that you have, 4 buildings around in a square or a rectangle and a large open grassy area in the middle. And they're very private. You can't go inside until they have Open Doors Day in, I think it's September, which is the one day in the whole time we were there that we got to actually go in and wander around and go in the chapels and all that sort of thing. Sometimes there are a lot of concerts there, and then they'll guide you to the place where the concert's going to be. So it's it's amazing. It's full of towers, and this is Exeter's chapel, which is meant to replicate the Sainte-Chapelle in Paris. So it's just like a slightly smaller version, and beautiful, beautiful glass. And I'm not going to show you the inside. Sorry, you have to go. But that's Greg walking with the student there, and he's got his short pants on and his white legs. And this is the inside of Christ Church, which is probably the biggest one in the colleges. And you can see, and it's absolutely forbidden to walk on the grass. I'm not kidding you. A whole tour or group of people can be walking in there, and they'll come over and yell at you if you so much as step on that grass. I don't know why, but it's very formal. This is where they also filmed a lot of the Harry Potter movies, by the way. So in the summertime, this is like Disneyland here. There are busloads and busloads of tourists that come and go on all these tours to see the university, but mostly to see the Harry Potter sites where they filmed. The oldest tower in Oxford, and the only reason I'm showing you Oxford specifically is because that was Lynn's idea in the beginning to tell us about Oxford, and then I veered off of that. But anyway, this is St. Michael's Tower, and it was the corner of the wall that was around the whole town of Oxford originally. And I have some notes here, and if I remember, if I can read them, they're very scratchy. I can tell you, it was built between 1040 and 1050, so the 11th century is pretty darn old. And there is a castle in Oxford that's also very old, but this is the back side of it, which is not very distinguished, and because this is the part that became the prison. And if you can read the sign there, it says, "Step inside and do 1,000 years of time." It's a lot of history in Oxford. But we moved out from Oxford quite a bit and wandered around, and whenever we have a chance. And this is a sweet little castle that I really like, and I've been there a couple of times. It's in Somerset. It's modeled after a little French castle. I just think it's like a dainty castle. I mean, what was the purpose of a castle? It was either fortification, right? Or some knight, in this period, a knight who had a lot of money because he did something good for the king, and then he could build himself a castle. So it could be a residence, but it also needed to be protected because, face it, the history of England and Ireland and Scotland and Wales is very violent. And all these marauding groups and tribes and Saxons and Normans, and they were all fighting each other all the time. And you had to have a castle to protect your family and your knights. So this was a very handsome little one. And I have a sign so you can see Nunney Castle, a rare French-style 14th century castle. Nunney Castle was built in the 1730s by Sir John de Mere. I like this part, a local knight who was beginning to enjoy royal favor. And one of the things I realized over time is that because I really like the ruined ones the best, like this one. This one's ruined on the other side. It got bombed at some time. The ruined ones are usually the ones where the king never lived, or the queen. If a king or a queen lived there, they're in really good shape. And they're really beautiful, and you can go and tour them and see the inside and still see the draperies and the stained glass. pretty much. Those aren't my favorites. So those are the ones I'm showing you. So this is Nunney Castle, blasted a bit, and there's up close. So I love this stuff because it just looks like a painting to me. And it's inside the courtyard. So if you know the plan of a castle, this is Chepstow Castle in Wales. And basically a castle is a fortification with walls around it and maybe some towers on every corner so that they can get up high and see who's coming. And they'll have little slits in the side so that the archer can shoot his arrows or whatever his weapon is. But then inside there will be what's called a keep, some kind of tower or 3 or 4 story building. That's where the people would live, be livable, sort of livable, but pretty horrible living in a castle. And then the open area inside is called the bailey. And so a small castle would just have 1 keep and 1 bailey. And a big castle like this has 3 baileys. And it's on the River Wye, which is the river that separates Wales from England. So really important to the Normans who were inhabiting Wales at this time. Well, certainly parts of England too. They needed fortification. They needed defense. And it's really beautiful here, though. I took this also off the internet so that you can see what it looks like from the air. It's got 3 baileys, 3 open areas. That's where all the jousting and the knights practicing their thing would happen. But you can see that it's built right up to the river on this wall. There's this wall that goes down to the river. I was standing over on the lower left corner in that previous photo you see here. But I took this photo of one side of it. As you go along, you can go through you can go through most of it, and it's pretty ruined. And this is the wall, the cliff that goes down to the river. And this is the keep, the main one, the main building in the middle. And then just everywhere inside, you can see this crumbling stone, but then parts that are still, together and approximate. And some places you can't go; they'll have it carved off. And Chepstow's claim to fame is this door, which is supposedly the oldest door in all of Britain. You can come in, and it's famous because it's clad with iron and then coated with this wooden lattice work and then iron bolts, so it's very famous and very, very old. And then I'm going to show you a tiny bit of Caerphilly Castle, which is just about 8 or 9 miles up the road from the castle I just showed you at Chepstow. It's the second biggest one in all of Britain, next to Windsor Castle's the biggest. And the reason I'm showing you have to see it far. I didn't get to see this whole side when I was there, but I did get to see. I wish I had a pointer. I don't think I have a pointer, but there's a tower that's crumbling on the sort of towards the right. You can see a hole in it, and you can see it looks kind of shambly. And it's actually leaning like the Leaning Tower of Pisa. It looks like it's going to fall over any minute. And I was able to take a picture of it from inside. So you can see it's just hanging there. I think they have tried to buttress it up a bit, but and this is inside in the keep. It's enormous. It's got 4 baileys, so 4 open areas that. But it's in pretty bad shape. So there's a lot of this is what it looks like inside. Can you imagine living in place like this? Ugh, no. Caerphilly Castle. This is one part of it where they're doing a lot of repair and cleaning it and trying to restore it a bit. And then also along the Wye River, in that same area of Wales, is one of the most fabulous ruins, and Tintern Abbey. And Tintern Abbey, has anybody been there? Yeah, right? Okay. It's also the thing of myth in a way, and mystery and romance about it, but it was basically started by a group of monks, and they just wanted to have this private and, beautiful little community to live in peace and devotion. And so let's see, I think I even have a note. Let's see. So it was started in around in the 1130s. They started to build an abbey, a larger, beautiful church, and progressed on it for about 400 years until Henry VIII came along in his Reformation and said, "Oh no, Catholics go away." So it was ruined during Henry VIII's time in I think the 16th century. So this is what's left of it. It's very fragile. It's a lot of it is off limits to tourists to explore, but they have gained a lot of funding to help restore it, and there was a lot of restoration going on. So you see, there's not a lot of it left, but it's stunningly beautiful. And I think the thing that most people like to go at night, I guess it's really beautiful at night when you see the stars and the moon through these openings. But we were there during the day on it was actually a pretty blustery day, rainy, but it's the inside. There's a little group getting a tour. You can see, and these, of course, openings all had stained glass at one time. It's all gone. Yeah. And here's a map showing you what they know what all the rooms were, because the monks lived in all the smaller rooms here that towards the lower area, and then the church the abbey was there, built on a Gothic style with the T. And you can also see how thin these walls are. But one of the things that the reparations are doing is they're actually taking apart some of the upright posts, and they're putting steel inside and then redoing the masonry so that it will hold up. Because they're just paper, they're just, the mortar and all of that is just gone. They're just so ready to be demolished, and it's so beautiful. And look at the stone. And they're using one of the guys that we talked to said they're using a polyester formation of, it's not really cement anymore, it's some kind of polyester stuff that they're working with to, really? I don't know, but this is just some doorways in the areas. All the monks' rooms were plotted out, and they had little signs that told you whether it was the kitchen or, somewhere, So I love this place. And that's the stone. So my most recent, how am I doing? All right? I'm almost done. My most recent foray was up in Scotland last September. I went up to do a little residency with some other collage artists, and we went to a little town called Sankar. It's about 50 miles south of Glasgow, in the Dumfriesshire, it's the area, and there was purported to be a castle there. So we went walking, and these all kinds of little pathways through farms and things, and all these great stone fences. They probably used some of the castle rocks to make all these, stone walls that separate farmer A from farmer B. And but you'd also find little carvings set into the walls, and carvings with basically what's Scottish Celtic language. It's really undecipherable to English, or and lots of times seashell shapes. I don't know why, but I should do my research about that. So after a while, you're going along the River Nith, and then there's farms and little dwellings and little cottages, and then you start to see some ruins, a tower of some kind, and you can see it off to the right. This is some of my comrades and I walking around it. This Sankar Castle, we did find it. It had a moat at one time, so it was a pretty traditional little castle. And you can see it's very, very deteriorated, but it had a keep, which was over on the right, which was about 4 stories high. And it had an entrance with a bridge and over the moat, which is the round archway. You can see the dark. And it's really beautiful because you can see all these different changes over the centuries where they would have to rebuild and put new rock in, and different owners had it. And I have, there's all kinds of also stories in this area about different intrigue, things that happened, murders that happened out here at the castle, and some princess fell from the top of the keep, and they found her bones, and there's just all kinds of stories. When you're in the town, you can sit down with somebody in the pub and ask them what they know about the castle. Oh, well, I'll tell you. And they tell you. And so it's really fun. And then I found in the little museum in the town of Sankar, I found this drawing. So I took a picture of it so that somebody had done a little more homework than I did and figured out probably what it most likely looked like in its heyday, when it was a solid together castle. Not a big one, but a strong fortification. And then this is the sign for that castle in Sankar. Pretty amazing. It's been visited by Robert the Bruce, William Wallace, right? Major Scottish warriors. Edward I, Edward II, Mary Queen of Scots, and James VI. Not bad for little Sankar Castle. And Drumlanrig Castle, we meant to go to, and we went, and they wouldn't let us in because they were filming a movie there last fall. So, which happens with all the fancier castles that are still good. I'm done. Oops. Okay.
Questions?
All right. Questions? Oh, no.
You were so thorough, we don't have it.
Oh, I noticed that there was some unusual buttressing. Did you notice that on the keep and the Welsh castle?
Those
Is that
triangular
yeah, right? Is that a
bottom of the
modern
mountain.
innovation, or was that original? Do you know?
I'm sure it's something that's come along subsequent to the original building so that they could hold it up, because they're all crumbling. Ms. Clara.
I can project. What do you like so much about stone and castles for painting or collage?
That's a great question. I don't know. I mean,
Microphone.
what? Oh, she asked. Did you hear? What do I like so much about stone and castles in my work, my creative work? I just think compositionally they're fabulous, and the texture. I'm a very tactile artist, and they present themselves as combinations of things that I'm just attracted to aesthetically. So, and I like the idea of the history of they're still there. I mean, it's when you're in one of those castles, it's so real. It's so tactile. I mean, you can feel, you can imagine anyway, all the different things that happened there, and feel like you're a continuation, I don't know.
Any more questions?
Thank you.
So I'd like to introduce Lynn, who's the next presenter. So Lynn has been living in Tacoma for the last 25 years. And many years before that in Seattle. She's been a professional artist for over 45 years, making her living by doing commission work and selling mostly sculpture in galleries in various cities across the United States. She welded skeletons of stylized animals covering the armature in fabric, found objects, and sometimes concrete. Social commentary is often her subject matter. Lately, her subject is wasteful plastics. Lynn is a Capricorn. She loves to play quirkle, dominoes, cribbage. She's left-handed. She loves dinner parties, enjoys reading. She spends a couple of days a week in Seattle with her wonderful partner, Dick. Because Lynn can't help creating events for building community, which is so true, if I might add, yes. It's just, so Lynn lines up speakers for Tripod every month. And her artist friend Lars Husby organizes trips to exotic, out-of-the-way countries for low-budget travelers like Lynn, an artist. And this time was to Papua New Guinea. And so tonight she's going to give you a glimpse of that fascinating country.
Thanks, Mary. I'm glad I didn't have to introduce myself. Okay. So first I wanted to show you just two pieces of sculpture that I made. This one is called The Rising Tide. And I don't know if you can see the woman in life float up there. And this one is called Under the Weather, and it's sort of under the weather of plastic. What happened? Well, I am going the other way. You have it upside down? Gee, I guess so. Help. Thank you, that was the whole show. Okay, this one is Under the Weather, and we're all under the plastics storm. Now, so I had it right. Okay, this is what Papua New Guinea looks like. It's a beautiful country. It had bright blue skies the entire time we were there. We were there in August last year. And we had kind of a small bus, and I believe there were 9 of us traveling. And so we got pretty friendly that tight in that little bus. And the people in Papua New Guinea are super friendly and enthusiastic, and it isn't a country that has had a lot of tourists, so that's probably why. And every time we passed people anywhere, they were jumping up and waving and so happy. And sometimes the little kids would run along the side of our bus, and maybe for a mile or something, just keeping up with the bus. It was amazing. Sometimes we would take a little break just on the side of the highway in the middle of nowhere, and within seconds there would be 50 kids just running up, waving, and so excited. I wanted to tell you a little bit about betel nut, which is something that grows on a tree that everybody chews there. And when they do, they also put lime in their mouth and one other ingredient, and it makes their mouth turn bright red. And I could guess at the numbers of people, the population using it, it's probably about 50%. And it can cause cancer in your mouth. And almost every person we talked to, even little kids, would open their mouth and it would be bright red. very upsetting. So it was often sold on the side of the road at places like this. So here's a woman with a red mouth. We saw a lot of evidence of the missionaries that have been there working on those people to believe in Jesus. When I got back from the trip, I read a book by an anthropologist who said that most of the people in Papua New Guinea believe white people are in heaven, that they've died and gone to heaven because we have so many things. We have telephones that we carry around in our hand. We have submarines and airplanes and toasters. And they believe, this, according to this, the guy that wrote the book, they believe that they're in hell because they struggle to get enough to eat. They basically don't have any money. Getting clothes is pretty hard to do, and they do fight a lot with their neighbors. This is a funeral, well, no, it's a house where a dead person has been buried. And we saw a lot of these roadsides. Most of them were not fancy like this, but that's how they honor their dead. And I thought you might like to see a little graffiti from Papua New Guinea. And this structure is typical of the homes they have. And sometimes we saw beautiful artwork. We stayed in, for the most part, really nice places, modern hotels that could have been in any city, and here we are eating in the dining room. And the man in red is the leader of the tour. And when I first laid my eyes on him, I thought, oh my goodness, he looks so much like an Australian Aboriginal. Well, the countries are right next to each other. Here's a hotel that we stayed in Port Moresby, which is the capital. And that plane is just a decorative object in the yard. And here's the interior of another room we stayed in with a lot of woven mats, very nice. Here's a picture of Mars. Most of you know her as Mars here tonight. Most of these pictures were taken by my fellow traveler, Mindi Katz, who lives in Seattle, so she's not here tonight. And we all took hundreds of pictures, but I thought hers were better than mine. We went to several food markets, and those cabbages are this big. And all the vegetables we saw were really impressive. This is sort of outside the market, sort of the renegade market area. They make these bags, and almost every woman was working on a bag everywhere we went. And I would stand really close and watch and try to figure out what they were doing, because they were not knit, they were not crocheted, it was some kind of finger weaving. And it's done with a fine, well, fine, maybe not too fine, sort of like a combination of cotton string and yarn. And this is outside a market. So this pig is a pet pig. I don't know if they end up eating it. And so I'm going to show you a few of the animals. This is a tree kangaroo, which is something they eat, so they're endangered. This is a possum that was being sold by the roadside, and the people in our group felt nervous about somebody eating that possum, so we bought it. And we took it back to our room. No, we didn't. We drove it to another neighborhood, kind of like what you do when you've got a raccoon bugging you in your area. You put it in your car and you drive it over to another neighborhood. Here's one of my fellow travelers, just a beautiful sight with some goats, which they do eat, of course. And here's a praying mantis. And Papua New Guinea is full of beautiful birds. And we went to some sites where there were a lot of other tourists looking at birds. And this is a cassowary bird, which stands about this tall. Dangerous. Well, they eat them also, so I guess it's whoever wins first. So this is one of Jennifer's shots. They fixed a couple of meals for us that were buried in the ground over hot rocks. And here's a picture of them. First they put down palm leaves, and then they put down some vegetables and then chicken. And somehow they cooked this right while we're sitting there. And none of us were alarmed. Oh my God, they aren't wearing gloves. I don't see any sanitary device. But when they were finished and they opened it up and said, "Help yourselves. We're all very distressed not to get a plate or silverware or a place to wash our own hands." So we were all like, "Tastes good." So we did go to a couple of festivals. How many people here saw the tripod show that we had maybe 3 months ago that was also Papua New Guinea? Well, when we presented that show that night, there were 3 different presenters from this same trip. And I felt like they didn't talk enough about certain things that I wanted to cover, so that's why I'm up here doing this. And they focused a lot on the festival we went to, which was rather amazing to see the regalia these folks come up with. So here's a few shots from that. At first we thought, oh brother, they've imported some Western makeup or something, like how do they get those intense colors? But they showed us, they picked pods right off the tree and added a little saliva and mixed them up, and it was bright red or bright yellow. And of course, they collect a lot of feathers from birds. And here's a cassowary beak down the back of him as part of that neck item. So as Westerners, we were really distressed to see all the bird feathers, really beautiful, but we were like, oh, we hope they didn't kill them. That must be it. Questions? Okay, back.
Did you get any ideas for some coats or dresses or things that you might like to make?
No. So I could go back up here and talk in this microphone. No, I didn't really, but it is so stimulating to go see a place like that. So mostly it inspires me to travel somewhere else. And Cheryl and I are planning to go to Mongolia in September. Even though after this trip, I said that is the last third world trip I'm taking. But we want to see the horsemen with golden eagles on the ends of their arms coming in on horses. Any more questions?
The stuff they put in their mouth that turns it red, does it have a euphoric? What do they use it for? What is it?
Thanks, Wendy. It's like speed. So they use it to stay awake. And another thing about living in that country, Can you hear me? Yes. They don't have television. They don't play cards. They don't read books because there aren't any books available. So it's just self-entertainment. Okay.
Yeah, they use betel nut throughout the Indonesian archipelago. So Malaysia, Indonesia, Brunei, and those places.
Yes. Well, we wish they would stop doing that, just for their health.
By the way, if anybody wants to see the Papua New Guinea show, it's on YouTube. The email that Lynn sends out has the link to the YouTube playlist. So it's up there.
Great. All these shows are on YouTube, so if you're on the invite email list that I send out a few times every month, at the bottom is the link, so you can just tap on that to look at any of these shows. There is a sign-up clipboard back there if you want to be added to that email invitation list. Next is Jeff Strong. His interest in photography began in his teen years, making funny movies with friends. In high school, he learned camera basics and darkroom technique working on the school yearbook. Jeff worked as a university photographer in college as part of his financial aid and found the campus a rich environment for creative photography. Since he loves both art and science, he often found himself in areas where they intersect, like photography. Art and science also intersect in his other interests, such as sand sculpture. Who here came to see his sand sculpture presentations? Quite a few of you. Pretty amazing. And also ceramics and Lego. Even in his career in IT at University of Puget Sound, where an artistic approach was very helpful, they created the information systems that supported students, faculty, and staff. Jeff?
Thank you. Oh, I broke it. There we go. This is an area of Kenya called the Lewa Conservancy. Can you hear me? I visited 1 year ago, almost exactly, 4 areas of Kenya that were pretty close together, mostly. This place, which is near the elephant pepper camp, named after the plant that elephants like to eat. And this is the Lewa area near Safari Camp, where I spent a lot of the time. Now, I just want to say a word about these conservancies. I was so happy to find that there are these large tracts of land that are very well cared for. The animals are able to roam freely, have a natural life, raising their young and hunting each other and trying not to get eaten. It was really nice to see all of that. And the people that do the conserving are doing it in such a beautiful way. They have schools, there are programs to help elevate the women in the society there. micro financing, micro loans. The handicrafts that the women do can be taken to market, sold, and the money brought back and put directly in their hands, so they have total control. And of course, all of the animal conservation, the rangers that patrol the whole areas, the way they prevent poaching. It was really fantastic, and I'm more at ease. I was worried about the vanishing of natural world, and this made me feel much better. Now, in the distance you see Mount Kenya. Mount Kenya is actually, the name originates from the name for the ostrich. The Swahili name is Nyaga. And when there was snow on it, the white on top and the black below looked to them like an ostrich when it bends down. And so Kirinyaga meant mountain of the ostrich. Now, the British, this is what I was told by one of the Maasai, the British could not pronounce Kirinyaga. I'm sure I'm not saying it right. They would say Kenya, and that is how the country got its name that we use today. So, this isn't going to be a travelogue. I was excited to go on this trip because I wanted to see all these animals, I wanted to experience a new place, and I wanted to indulge my interest in photography, and I knew there would be a lot of good subjects. So I just want to give you a little bit of a taste of the situation, and then I'll show you a bunch of pictures that I shot. You would think, I was told that, okay, we're going to be sleeping in tents at a safari camp. So that brought one particular kind of image to mind. I don't know why this is not working right now. Well, these are the tents, and that was the camp up above. So we were treated pretty well. This trip was led by Maureen O'Keefe, who is a keeper at Point Defiance Zoo, and another woman who is at a zoo in Australia. And there were a lot of zoo people on the trip, a lot of people that knew a lot about animals, and it was great to be around them. I learned a lot. I heard a lot of the names of things. I don't remember any of that, but I loved being with them and hearing all of that knowledge. Our guides were Maasai. Almost everyone we met there were Maasai. And we spent some time with them at a place called Ilnagwesi. That was amazing to see how these people lived. We learned a lot about how they lived over the hundreds and hundreds of years, getting everything they needed from the land around them, how they make a toothbrush out of a particular kind of stick, how the juice of one particular kind of fruit would kill any infection or keep the bugs from getting into something. Don't eat it, it'll kill you. All of these sorts of things. I was very impressed with them. They were our guides, and they are responsible for the photographs I'm going to show you more than I am, because they knew enough about the environment, the patterns of life, what the sounds and the markings on the ground all mean, so they knew exactly where to take us. And this is how they took us in these vehicles that would hold about half a dozen of us. And you can see from this how close we were able to get to the animals and how close the animals would come to us. To the animals, we were like a big dumb animal in these vehicles. We might have made some weird sounds, but we didn't move around in unpredictable ways, and they would just walk right by. There were lions and elephants and, closer to me than I am from this front row. It was really amazing. So I did learn these are giraffes. I also learned that this is called a journey of giraffes, which I really like. If they're standing still, they're a tower of giraffes. Okay, let me try this one. So one of the challenges in photography is, well, you want to make a nice composition. You want it to be, well, sometimes you want it to be beautiful, but sometimes you want it to be something else. But how do you add something to it? What makes it more than just an objective snapshot of an area? So I would try to find a way to make it somehow subjective, somehow to tell a little bit more about the animal or about my experience of viewing the animal. I watched her for a while, and she kept licking that paw, and when she stood up and walked away, she was limping. We watched this jackal play with this mouse for at least 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes. He would throw it up in the air and then pounce on it. It was very fascinating to watch. I have lots of video of it. And we're sure that he's getting ready to eat this mouse. And when he was done, he just walked away, left it there. His mate was nearby but didn't participate. You know, I had a bad impression of hyenas. I'd always heard there were these scavengers that were sort of ugly and mean and stuff. But I got a different view of them, looking at them raising their young. And I was struck that all these animals would wander amongst each other during the day and not seem to even mind that there was a lion nearby or a zebra and something else in close proximity. Although one morning we, on our way out, about how far? Quarter of a mile from our camp, there was a zebra that had been killed by a lion the night before. That's called a long-tailed something or other. I don't know how you can not feel connected. I think these guys were my favorite. One morning, there were 8 or 10 or 12 in a group walking along it was silent except for the sounds of their low rumbling sounds and the ripping of the grass out of the ground and their chewing. And we would park ahead of where they were wandering. They were just strolling along, and they would come right next to us, and I'd watch them wrap that trunk around the grass and yank it out. There's a reason that this is filling the screen. This animal was, I could almost reach out and touch it. These are animals. Have you ever seen the elephant enclosure at Pointe Defiance Zoo? Yeah. Young elephants were often sparring, and it looked like fun. I don't know what was going on socially. I know that elephants have quite a complex social life. This little elephant was running around like a puppy chasing through the birds. This is at Amboseli National Park. That's called a parade of elephants. And Mount Kilimanjaro is behind those clouds. Looks like a big hill. Do you know what this bird is called? I know what this bird is called. Secretary bird, landing in its nest. These birds were really unhappy with each other. I don't know who was invading whose territory, but that one in the air was flying around and diving at this other one, and the one in the tree was having none of it.
How big are they?
Big. The one in the tree was very big. Eagle size. I think it was an eagle. I believe this is a fish eagle. I'm not sure. Or this is. Don't ask me. Thousands and thousands of flamingos. And of course, one of the challenges in trying to make good photographs is trying to find a good composition. And when you've got a big scene and you want to show how many birds there are, it looks just really boring. But if you can kind of try to get in and shoot about 1,000 pictures of them, pretty soon one of them will work. Then you can try to find their grace and their form and bring it out. I really like it when you can boil something down to its simplest, where there's no extraneous stuff going on. And one of the ways that is good to do that in photography is to eliminate the color. Often, if a black and white picture generally has to have good composition to work. In a color picture, sometimes the color can mask the effect that it's not very well composed. And then you can also bring out detail. Very close. These, this is a white rhino, which is not as dangerous as the black rhino. These guys eat vegetation. They have a broad nose, and the front horn is the big one. The black rhinos, the horn that's further back is the big one. They have a narrower nose, and they're more apt to be a problem. And we saw many of both kinds. We saw hippos in the water. It was very difficult to find one out of the water. Only in the morning when they're coming back from feeding in the night, they would walk like a kilometer or two to get food and then go back into the water. And I love bringing out the texture. But more than that, I wanted portraits of these animals. I wanted to feel like we were seeing a living thing in there, not just something wandering around. Okay, keep switching. This guy was walking towards the side of our vehicle, and I was shooting and with a zoom lens, making it wider and wider and wider as he came closer and closer. And our guide started up the vehicle and pulled forward, and he said, "That guy was angry and horny." This is maybe a time to note that I mess around with these pictures a lot after I shoot them in the camera. Ansel Adams said the negative is the score and the print is the performance. And the way I look at it is I'm gathering light with the camera and I'm making the photograph on the computer. The computer gives me a lot more control and immediate feedback than darkroom work ever did. And so I really love working that way. It opens up, in this, I'm not going into technicalities too much because it's not a photo class, but here's an example where I actually shot 3 pictures of this. He was so still, I got away with it. I was even handheld, and I could line them up in the computer. One underexposed, one properly exposed, one overexposed, taking the different values from the different shots and combining them to increase the clarity and the contrast. And it made a really nice color photograph, and I lived with it that way for a month or 2 or 3. But I wanted more. I wanted this to be more dramatic. And so I went back and I changed it to black and white, and I darkened the background. And I'm much more happy with it now because I think you can really see what this guy's been through. And that's it.
Those are amazing. I have a couple of questions. Were all these photographs from your last visit?
My only visit, yes.
Your only visit?
Practically my only visit anywhere, yes. I've been to, I have not traveled the world as much as I would like, a few places. But.
I would like to know if you have published any of these, because it would be lovely to have a booklet of your photographs.
I would like to do that. I don't know that anybody looks at photos anywhere but on their phone these days, which is why it's so nice to be able to come here and see them large. But I have put these on Flickr, which is a photo site that anyone can go to. And I have them full resolution, open to the public. You can download it and print it. I don't want you to make money off of it or change it in any way, but I want you to see it properly on a nice big screen.
Will you give us your information on how to access your site?
Yes, I should have written it up here, but I will tell you now in case you remember. My name is Jeff Strong, and if you go to Flickr, Flickr, no E, and search for Jeff Strong, you'll see several Jeff Strongs, but one of them you'll see my picture. And you'll see more pictures of Africa than this, and you'll see pictures of the Northwest, pictures of other places. So
And you're the same person who does the sand?
yes,
Sand. Okay,
yes.
just wanted to
You have to go somewhere else to see those pictures, but I might put them together sometime.
Sand castles and
Sand sculpture, yeah.
I was wondering what format you're shooting in, and also what's the longest lens you brought with you?
It was difficult to decide what equipment to take with me because we were only allowed 35 pounds for everything we carried because we flew to the savannah in a small plane. I use a Nikon D780, which is kind of the low end of the good cameras, and I took a 2470 lens and a 200 to 500 millimeter zoom, and so that long lens is how I was able to get really up close and personal. Although sometimes a lot of those close ones were with the wide-angle lens because the animals were just so close. I also took my older camera body so that I could have one lens on one camera, one lens on the other, and didn't have to change lenses and worry about the dust getting on the sensor. I could switch easily. The problem was that sometimes the lens I wanted was on the crummier camera. So.
More questions?
On the shot of the lion that you converted to black and white, did you use HDR software like Topaz?
I used a program called Photo something. I used a free, I'm already out of it, never mind. I was going to go back to that shot. You can do it in Lightroom, but you can download for not too much money or free. If I remember the name, I'll come tell you, but they do a nice job of aligning them for you and giving you lots of nice options so you don't have to play with it quite so much. But I'm often unsatisfied with what they do, so I will take what I get from there and then work on it further in another program. And now I'm using Lightroom, which is from Adobe, but I have used other programs as well that I like just as much.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Oh, there he is. Yes, some of these are also in Photoshop. Sometimes there's an extraneous something, and I don't want that to distract, so I'll work on the picture in one program, then go into Photoshop to remove something, and then come back into Lightroom. Some of these I would spend very little time on. Some of them I spent several days working on.
I hope you didn't already say this and I missed it, but how many days were you there to get all those shots of those animals? That's a lot of animals.
Totally almost 3 weeks. There were several days at the beginning where we weren't really out on the savannah. And when we were at Ilnaguasi with the Maasai, a lot of our days were spent walking, not in vehicles, down through this other area, and we were learning a lot about the Maasai, but not seeing as many animals because it wasn't safe. We always had a ranger with us. Whenever we went to our tents, we were accompanied by a ranger because it was dangerous. And we did encounter some elephants when we were walking unprotected, and they hustled us out of there. And I was so frustrated because there were these beautiful currents in this river that I wanted to take pictures of, and they're going, come on. Probably it was usually a drive in the morning and a drive at night, before sunrise and before sunset. And then often, as the sun is setting, we come up on this big rise, and there are a couple of other vehicles with other people from our group, and they have set up for us a big bar, and it's gin and tonics and a sunset looking over all these creatures. It was really rough.
Well, I was here to see your sand sculpture presentation. And so I'm wondering if you feel like there's some sort of connection in your artwork between the photography and the sculpture, and there's just different media.
I
They're
absolutely
so
do.
different.
And I appreciate that question. Going back to my early days, I wanted to major in physics, but nobody told me I should take math in high school if I wanted to do that. So I majored in art instead. Definitely with sand sculpture, it is definitely art meeting science, because it wasn't until I understood how the surface tension helps the particles cling together that I knew how far I could push the sand and how to structure it so that it would hold and how much to broaden it out. Here with optics and light, understanding how for the conditions, whether you want a deep depth of field or shallow depth of field, long exposure, short exposure, all those things, you can learn the mechanics, but if you understand what's going on, it makes it a lot better. We like to divide the universe into topics that we can digest one at a time, but it's all connected, it's all one, and if we can flow between those things, then it just works so much better. It's such a rich experience, and one thing complements the other.
Well, that lion reminds me of your sand sculpture in some way.
Yeah.
Do you have a name for that lion?
No, I don't want to name him. I like him, but I feel like that would be somehow possessing him.
So I want to tell you about next month's tripod, which is on March 21st, third Friday of the month, as usual. And that show coming up is a bit of a departure from what we've normally been doing, which is either usually artists, traveling, or civic interest. Erik Perrohe, our technician, a couple of years ago, his mother died, and she was elderly. They didn't know exactly when she was going to die, but they didn't know enough about what was getting ready to happen. So right away, her bank account was closed, and he'd been living with his mother, and the mortgage was canceled immediately because the bank couldn't let the money in or out. And utilities and phone and everything was coming out of that account. So it was pretty scary for him. And a couple of years ago, we talked about doing a show, what happens when loved ones die and what to do about it from not just the emotional standpoint, but financial, legal. And I'm sure you've all known people who have died and the aftermath. So Erik is doing a show on his mother, featuring his mother and talking about those challenges. And Ann Darling's husband Peter died, and she's going to talk about that. And James Hume's mother died, and Odessa Christiana is going to talk about that along with James. So we hope you'll come March 21st. And it's kind of a sobering topic, but also very interesting. Okay, thanks for coming tonight.